So I would like to thank Betsy Goldstein for joining us for Coffee with Kyla. Welcome, Betsy.
Hello.
We are so excited to have you. Our topic is around Columbus in general and the things happening in our city, the very exciting growth that we are experiencing. But first of all, we want to introduce Betsy and her professional history with building and development around the city and what led you to be this research guru informing our community on this Intel project that's happening in Licking County.
My background is a little unique in that I didn't grow up thinking I want to do business development in construction, in architecture, in this industry. And so I started as a real estate agent after buying a rental property and became licensed in 2006, right as the downturn began to happen. And I was buying more investment properties and I was working with other investors. And in that time, I realized we were, facing the same challenges, but didn't have a collective voice as there were things that were happening throughout the city. So I decided to found and become president of the Ohio Landlord Association. And within the first 3 months, we had 640 independent landlords, and we represented the largest amount of private single-family and multifamily homes in and around Central Ohio.
So cool.
It was a really unique experience because, we launched, let's say, in January, and in February or March, there were issues with the city in legislation. And so for the very first time, they had a face and an organization they could reach out to get input and, have them be present. So I was testifying before city council and I was, advocating for landlords as it related to some of the legislation. And so fast forward, I had the opportunity to sell the association and I ended up with a construction association thinking, well, I've done real estate and I've, torn houses apart. It's got to be the same thing. I know just as much about construction, I'm sure. And so in landing at a construction association, it was a really good opportunity to transition into this side of the industry, meeting construction owners and subcontractors and really getting my feet wet on the commercial side. I did that for several years and really enjoyed it and ended up at a construction company that I was the vice president of business development and marketing, and we had 5 subsidiary companies beneath us, and that was my real first introduction into big commercial construction.
Yeah.
And from there, I am with MA Design, and I love the architecture side. I love development. I love seeing the city grow and expand. I love seeing projects that you and myself and so many others get to be part of and then have people enjoy it, and it adds value to the city.
Yeah. So what landed you specifically on the Intel project? Because you are out there informing our community on, and we'll get into that in a bit, on what this actually means to our city and the impact it will have. How'd you end up there?
So after the first of the year, when we all went back to work, I got a phone call from a developer who said, hey, Betsy, out in New Albany, that site out there, that's going to be Intel. And in my mind, I thought, well, that's just like the Facebook data center or any number of data centers that we have in and around town. My assumption was it was just going to be a large industrial type building, and that was the end of the story.
Yeah.
So we have a business development meeting every week and come back, and it's our first one after the new year. And I'm like, hey, you guys, that project out there I've heard is Intel. And all of the partners and the studio leaders like, oh, okay. But each week after that, I started having conversations. And I think in large, how I ended up in this part or position that I'm in right now with having this information is just having a network of people who all are involved in some different way, not directly with Intel, but developers and economic developers and city officials and community stakeholders. And when you start having those conversations and you pull all of that together, it gives you a different view.
Yeah, I love that your first initiative and as a professional was a collective voice and organizing a community, and it seems like you're doing it again in it just it's a different subject matter. So the we're really on this LOTH loves Columbus, and you've shared a few things. Why do you, Betsy?
I love Columbus because I feel like it's a small, big town.
Mhm.
I love the fact that I can go to the short north and run into someone. I love the fact that even though we're in this big metropolitan area, it really is a small community where not everybody knows everybody, but we're all intertwined and we're all one person away from knowing one another.
Yeah.
So I think Columbus is this great area, this amazing city. I always say to people right now, especially, there is no better place to be in the entire country than right here right now. And I truly believe that. But to be here and to have great schools, to have great leadership, to have a progressive city that's moving forward, to see the developers that are doing amazing work here,
Yeah.
I think that's really special.
I do too. I love that answer. So speaking of growth and big things coming, what is the true magnitude of the Intel project? What does that mean to our city, which you just referenced, and also the region of Ohio?
So I think it's really hard because as someone who talks about this all day and feels like I know all about it, it's still really challenging to wrap our head around exactly what the magnitude of this is. There was a quote in the dispatch, this would have been clear back last spring, and it was the mayor of the Oregon Intel area who said, "Your wildest dreams are only half of what is going to come true."
Oh my
And
gosh.
so it's the generational impact of this. So we've had incredible projects, we've had great opportunities in and around the city, but I don't know that we've ever had anything that is literally going to transform generations to come.
Yeah. Wow. And what do you mean by that? How does that translate into the generations behind us?
Sure. So investment in education that Intel is going to make and the type of education.
Okay.
So I look at my niece and nephew who are going to be starting kindergarten next year, and I think about them in that if Intel hadn't come, would they be interested in STEM in the same way? Would they have the same career opportunities in technology in Columbus had Intel not come? And so I look at what the future generations, the job opportunities, the educational opportunities, I think that is what transforms Columbus.
Yeah. And I love in your presentations, you talk about why Ohio. So we
Right.
have historically seen a lot of this tech, that kind of engineering mind or job opportunity be on the coast, specifically the West Coast. Why Ohio, and what kind of jobs are those that you just mentioned?
So why Ohio in large part is because of the collaboration that made it happen. So when we talk about Jobs Ohio and we talk about the governor's office and One Columbus and we talk about the community leaders behind the scenes that were part of that,
Yeah.
it's a huge collaboration. And then on top of that, you layer the CHIPS Act, which is a federal funding device,
Yeah.
right? So this intertwined collaboration on many different levels and many different sectors is largely why Ohio.
Yeah, amazing. So what do we need to prepare for? So we know this will have a big impact. And what should we be aware of as a community and as professionals that, like you said, might not necessarily working on the Intel project, but next to or adjacent to, this will affect everyone in the city. What do we prepare for?
So I think what's really unique about this is it does touch every single person in Central Ohio. So not just Columbus, not just Licking County, but this whole region, which is something that's going to be a new way of thinking for us.
Yeah.
A lot of times we don't say Central Ohio, but moving forward, that's going to be the new way to reference where we live.
Right.
How we prepare for it and who is most impacted. So the trades, first and foremost, are going to be impacted by this. Do we have enough? What's going to happen to labor costs? What happens to material pricing? Outside of our industry, we're looking at the opportunity for investment in higher education. So universities, we're talking about there going to be a population increase, so more hospitals, more
Yeah.
retail, more housing, anything and everything that you and I touch every single day, and any of us touch every single day, we will need more of.
Right.
And
Right.
we
I think, go ahead. Transportation. Oh my gosh. Affordable housing, transportation, and I think the real estate situation that goes along with it is something to think about, will affect all of us. So I love that you're out in the community speaking about this, raising awareness, but you mentioned the investment in education. What are some of those other positive community impacts that will come from all of this activity?
So Intel has historically been a very, very good partner in philanthropic efforts. And so here we have Intel coming in, making commitments that will be part of our community in that way. But then we also have all of the suppliers who are coming in, and we have all of the people who are coming in, and all of that will then follow with other things. So positive impacts, I think we're going to see more opportunity in our nonprofits. I think we're going to see more investment in early education, in the arts. I think you're going to see a new wave of investment in that piece as Intel looks at all children as potential Intel employees and wanting them to be creative and innovative and investing in that way.
Yeah.
So I think the positives outweigh the negatives. While we don't, this is how I always reference it. We have a disaster plan or a contingency plan if X, Y, and Z happens, but no one in the entire country, no city, no municipality has a book where they pull it out of a drawer and go, okay, if you land a $20 billion or $100 billion project, this is what you do.
Right.
But I think we as a city have the people to make the coordination and find the solutions to the challenges that we're going to be facing.
Yeah. Amazing. Betsy, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate what you are doing, getting the word out, helping us all understand what's on the horizon for the city of Columbus and Central Ohio, as you mentioned, this region. And we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.